So you memorize only one sentence a day. So after 12 days you'll get the whole of it. Now last time we talked about the second link, that means between Sańkhâra and Viññāna. And I explained to you the process of death and rebirth, and also explained about Sańkhâra producing resultant Viññāna. This link is a very important one, and so we should try to understand it more fully. I'll talk about this link again, and I'll talk about Sańkhāras and Viññānas in real life, and how we accept law of karma, and how we accept the process of death and rebirth, and also what pitfalls we must avoid regarding the process of death and rebirth. Now, what are Sańkhāras in brief? You already know that Sańkhāras here mean karma, so good or bad karma. And Viññāna is the resultant consciousness. There are many types of resultant consciousness. So we have seen the Sańkhāras and Viññāna in the formula or in the book, and today we will see these Sańkhāras and Viññānas in real life. Whenever you do some deed, either good or bad, there is Sańkhāra. You know, Sańkhāra technically means a volition which accompanies these good or bad activities. When you practice charity, when you make donations, when you pay homage to the Buddha, when you take precepts and keep them, and when you practice meditation, you are doing Sańkhāras. You are accumulating good Sańkhāras. And if I don't really mean you do it, but if you kill living beings, if you steal, if you tell a lie, if you drink and so on, then you are doing Sańkhāras. In this case, you are doing bad Sańkhāras. So most of the time, you are doing one of these two kinds of Sańkhāras, good Sańkhāras or bad Sańkhāras. It is very, very rare that you are without Sańkhāras while you are awake. So only when you are fast asleep do these Sańkhāras remain. They do not arise. So at other times, most of the time, you are doing one Sańkhāra or the other. Now, what does all these Sańkhāras lead to? All these Sańkhāras lead to the next factor, Viññāna, and actually Viññāna also leads to Nama and Rupa. So we can say Sańkhāra leads to Viññāna and Nama Rupa. And Viññāna and Nama Rupa means just a new life or a rebirth. So Sańkhāras leads to rebirth. Rebirth means an existence a new existence. So when there is rebirth, there follows old age, disease, and death, and then there will be a next existence and next existence. So when you do sankharas, either good or bad, you are prolonging your samsara. Samsara means mind and matter going on and on and on from life to life. So when you do sankharas, you are prolonging your stay in the samsara. So this is whether we should do sankharas, whether we should do good sankharas or bad sankharas. If we want to get out of, if we want to stop this samsara. There are some people who say, who don't want to practice themselves, who don't want to practice charity themselves, who don't want to take and keep precepts themselves, who don't want to practice meditation themselves, and they would say, all of these are sankharas, and sankharas lead to rebirth, and so it leads to suffering in this samsara. And so you are prolonging your stay in the samsara if you do these activities. So don't do them. Something like that they said. What these people are not aware of is that if you do not do good sankharas, you will do bad sankharas, because you will have sankharas almost always, and if you do not have good sankharas, you will have bad sankharas, and if you do not have bad sankharas, you will have good sankharas. So, and so long as you are not an arahant, you will be doing sankharas. So, if you do not do good sankharas, then you will be doing bad sankharas. And so their advice is misguided. But isn't it true that sankharas prolong our stay in the samsara, because they cause a rebirth, and so rebirth involves old age and death and so on, and so we will be in the samsara for a longer time if we do sankharas here. Now, there are two kinds of good sankharas, and we need to understand this. One kind of sankhara is that which leads to, say, prolongation of our stay in samsara. And there is another kind of sankhara which does not lead to prolongation of our stay in samsara, but leads to end our stay in samsara. So there are two kinds of good sankharas, and we must understand these two kinds. Now, when you take precepts and you wish for a good life as a human being or as a deva, as a celestial being, then that good karma, that good sankhara may lead you to be reborn as a man or a celestial being, and so it will not lead you to end the stay in samsara. But if you direct your mind to the attainment of enlightenment or to the attainment of cessation of suffering or to the attainment of path and fruition and so on, then that sankhara will lead you to a life where the conditions, you will get conditions for attaining release from or freedom from suffering in that life. So that is the difference. The ordinary sankhara or kusala done with the intention of getting just the worldly benefits will lead you to those benefits, and so they lead you to suffering in the samsara. But if you direct your mind to the attainment of enlightenment, to the cessation of suffering, to the destruction of mental defilement, then these sankharas will help you to be reborn in a place, in an existence where you get conditions for you to attain your goal. So they will not prolong your stay in the samsara. What do you say at the end of taking precepts? So every time you take precepts, you say something at the end. What was that? Idame silam magganyanasa paccayo hodu. Right? What's the meaning of that? May this, my sila, be a condition for attainment of path and fruition. So whenever you say that you are directing your mind towards attainment of magga and phala, that means directing towards getting out of this samsara. So if you don't say that, and if you wish just for longevity or something in the human world or in the celestial world, then it may serve to prolong your stay in the samsara. So in order that your kusala, your sankhara may not lead you to a longer stay in samsara, you direct your mind towards the attainment of nibbana or attainment of path and fruition or attainment of cessation of suffering whenever you do some meritorious deeds. So whenever you do a meritorious deed, you must take care that you direct your mind towards the attainment of the cessation of suffering or attainment of nibbana. So whenever you make a donation, direct your mind towards attainment of nibbana. Or whenever you pay homage to the Buddha, whenever you take precepts, or even whenever you practice meditation, always direct your mind to the attainment of cessation of suffering. So this way you make your sankharas act for the cessation of suffering, for the ending of this round of rebirth. So whenever you do a meritorious deed, say this: may this my merit lead to the cessation of suffering, or lead to the destruction of mental defilements, or lead to the attainment of nibbana. So this is sankharas in real life. Now we come to viññāna in real life. So what is viññāna here? Viññāna means resultant consciousness. There are 32 types of resultant consciousness, and some are not so easy to understand, and so I will not tell you about all of them, but I will pick up those that are easy to see, easy to understand. Now when you see something, you have this seeing consciousness. And that seeing consciousness is the viññāna here, the result of the first sankhara. Whether you see a beautiful object or an ugly object, the resultant seeing consciousness arises. The resultant of a good sankhara or the resultant of bad sankhara. So when we see something, we are experiencing the resultant Viññāna. In the same way, when we hear something, when we smell something, when we taste something, when we have touch, good or bad touch, something, then we are really experiencing the Viññāna, the resultant Viññāna caused by past sankharas. So when you do something, good or bad, then you should understand that the sankharas, you are experiencing sankharas, you are doing sankharas, and when you see, hear, etc., something, and you should understand that you are experiencing the result of those past sankharas. So now you see the paticca samuppada, the dependent origination, that the law of dependent origination is working with you, working within you. And this link is important, and it is difficult to understand because the law of karma is involved in it, and also the process of death and rebirth is involved. But as a disciple of the Buddha, as a Buddhist, you understand to some extent the law of karma and also the process of death and rebirth. As Buddhists, we can say we believe in the law of karma. Now, how do we accept the law of karma? On faith or on some other thing? What do you think? We say we believe in the law of karma. We believe in karma and its results. First, we believe in karma because Buddha had taught it. Or on faith, we accept this law of karma to be true because it was taught by the Buddha, and we have full confidence in the Buddha because the Buddha was a person who taught after he discovered by himself the law of karma. So Buddha was a person who taught what he himself discovered, what he himself saw. And Buddha expressly said this to monks. Monks, having known things myself, I teach to you, something like that. So we can have confidence in the Buddha through these words, and so we just accept the law of karma simply because the Buddha taught it. So I think that is the first stage in accepting the law of karma. But we are not satisfied with accepting the law of karma just because Buddha taught it. So we want to do some thinking of ourselves, that also with the help of what the Buddha taught. Now, in the world we see people, different people. Some people who live long and some people who live a short life, some rich, some poor, some free from diseases, some always in sickness, and some intelligent, and some dull-witted, some beautiful, some ugly. So when we see all these differences in the world, and we begin to think, why is this different? So sometimes we can see this difference in one family, in the members of the same family, in the children of the same parents. Say, there may be 2, 3 children, and one may be intelligent and the other dull-witted, and one is beautiful and the other may be ugly. So, why this difference? We cannot attribute this difference to heredity or environment, because these children are born of the same parents, and they are brought up under the same in the same environment or under the same circumstances. But still there are differences. So when we think about these differences, this thinking carried us to some causes, say, beyond this life. So we have to go back to another place or another realm, say, to understand the cause of their difference. So if we cannot find a reason, a cause in this life, then we have to find it somewhere else. And here the Buddha's teachings also come into play, and so we think for ourselves that, the karma Buddha taught must be the cause of their difference here. So seeing the differences in people, see, we infer that this difference must be caused by something they did in the past, and that something they did in the past is just what the Buddha taught as karma. So in this way, we accept the law of karma on a little higher level, not just because Buddha taught it, but also we do our own thinking, and we have some kind of argument or something to help us to accept it in a more logical way. Later, when we practice vipassana meditation, we come to see the objects we observe and our observation, our observing mind, both arise and disappear, and then the other object and the other observation arise and disappear, and so on. And so, when our meditation is good, we come to see that only when there is something, say, to see, there is seeing. Only when there is something to hear, there is hearing, and so on. And so everything is dependent upon some other thing for its arising. So that is, we are beginning to see the law of cause and effect. So we see direct the law of cause and effect through the practice of meditation, and from this direct seeing we infer that what we are now must also be the result of what we did in the past. So in this way also we come to accept the law of karma. Now the first kind of accepting the law of karma, the accepting because the Buddha taught it, can we call that accepting blind faith? We'll see. Now, many of you have studied the science subjects when you are at school. So when you study subjects like physics and chemistry, see, you learn that there are physical elements. You learn that there are a little more than 100 physical elements, and you learn the names of those elements and the serial number of those elements and atomic weight and some other pieces of information about these elements, right? But I don't think all of you have really gone into the lab and then do the experiment yourself and try to measure the weight of each element yourself and assign the weight to each element. But you just accept what you are taught, because you have full confidence in those who taught, who first discovered and taught to the world. So if we can call that a blind faith, then we may call our acceptance of law of karma on faith a blind faith. So I leave it for you to decide. I will not decide for you. If you are not satisfied with just inference, but you want to see it clearly yourself, then there is a way, and that is to practice meditation so that you get the supernormal knowledge of seeing beings dying in one existence and being reborn in another. So that is a very sure way to see the law of karma. Buddha himself got this supernormal knowledge on the eve of his enlightenment, and with that knowledge he saw beings dying from one existence and being reborn in another, and he also saw that this being did good things, good sankharas, and so he is reborn in a better world, and this being did bad karma, and so he is reborn in hell, and so on. And so Buddha saw clearly the working of law of karma during the night before his enlightenment, and also he used this supernormal knowledge many times in his life as the Buddha. And he said that this knowledge can be attained not by Buddhas only, but by many people. Even when there were no Buddhas, this knowledge can be attained. So if you are not satisfied with just accepting on faith or by inference, but want to see directly for yourself, then you just practice meditation to get that supernormal knowledge. Although to get such a supernormal knowledge is not easy. Okay, then what about the accepting of rebirth or life after death? I think it's the same with us. We accept it on faith. We were born to Buddhist parents, and our parents believe in rebirth, and everybody else believes in rebirth, and so we pick up this belief from our parents and other people, and so our acceptance of rebirth in the beginning is on faith. But later, we may come across people who could remember their past lives, and some stories let us call them stories. Some stories they relate are so convincing that we just have to believe them. Sometimes they can tell us, they can describe us. They can describe a house in minute detail, and also they can find the house without being helped by any person. And they can find out things they used in their past lives, and sometimes they remember the names of those people in their past lives, and so on. And so they are so convincing that we cannot dismiss them as just hallucination or just coincidence. So from such accounts, our belief or our acceptance in life after death or our acceptance of rebirth becomes stronger. And in our countries, such people are not few. We can find such people at many places. But in the West, although there may be as many people who can remember their past lives, people are afraid to tell, because this country is predominantly a Christian country. And so those who are brought up under Christianity dare not tell stories like this. And the parents, when they hear their children telling these stories, they just repress them. But now these stories are coming out more frequently and more openly, and so I think Western people will also accept the rebirth more easily than they did in the past. Now, a little deeper understanding of the rebirth would be when we think of the mental activities going on in our mind. Sometimes we are happy, and sometimes we are sad, and at other times we are neither sad nor happy. And so these mental, let us call them mental states. I don't mean cetasika by mental state here. So these mental states come one after another. So there is one mental state, and then after this mental state, there is another mental state, and there is another mental state. And this mental activity goes on and on and on when we are alive. And it goes on and on because there is some kind of karmic force to perpetuate this continuation, this continuation of arising of mental states and then disappearing. So when we think about these mental states, the arising and disappearing, we come to thinking that this mental activity will go on so long as there is the karmic force, and so it will not stop at death. It will go on after death also, so long as there is this karmic force in existence. I mean, so long as there is this karmic force working, then this mental activity will go on and on and on even after death. So this we can consider, or we can think, and so thinking that way also we can accept that there is rebirth, because this mental activity cannot stop with this life, or it cannot be cut off altogether with the death of this life, with the death in this life. So it must go on so long as there is this karmic force, and this karmic force will be there so long as there is the source of this karmic force, and that source is the ignorance and craving. So long as beings cannot eradicate these two sources of karmic force, there will always be karmic force. And when there is this karmic force, then the mental activity which is the result of this karmic force will go on and on and on. So it will go on even when what we call one life ends, and so it will go on to the next life, and that next life is the rebirth. So this thinking this way also, we can accept the teaching, Buddha's teaching of rebirth. With the practice of vipassana meditation, our acceptance or understanding of the rebirth becomes stronger. Now when we practice meditation, vipassana meditation, we try to be mindful of whatever is going on in our minds and whatever is happening to us. So when we watch our minds, we see that the thoughts or consciousness arises and then disappears, and then next moment there is another consciousness, and the next moment another consciousness, and so on. So we see the arising of one consciousness and its disappearance, and then after that a new consciousness arises and disappears. And so we see these thought moments going on and on and on, arising and disappearing, arising and disappearing. See, whenever we practice meditation or we pay attention to the things we observe. So when we see this arising and disappearing, we come to think that what we call death is just like this one consciousness together with its concomitants and some matter disappearing. And what we call rebirth is just the arising of the new consciousness when we are living. So death and rebirth can be understood with reference to the two consecutive moments of thought. One disappearing, and then the next one appearing. So death is just that. It is not different from death, and rebirth are not different from these two types of consciousness arising and disappearing one after another. So if in this life, when we are living, this continuity of arising and disappearing of consciousness and go on, why can it not go on after what is called death? Because as I said before, so long as there is karmic force, then it will go on and on and on and on. And when consciousness arises, it needs some matter for its base. The seeing consciousness depends on the eye, and hearing consciousness depends on the ear, and other thinking consciousness depends on the heart. So consciousness needs a material base for it to arise. That material base becomes weaker and weaker as a person approaches death. And when it cannot serve as the base for the consciousness, then consciousness takes another matter for its base. So when death occurs, the physical body can no longer serve as the basis for the consciousness. So consciousness must go on, and it takes another material property, the rupa in the next life, at its base, and then go on and on and on. So thinking this way, I think we can accept the death and rebirth, that is through practice of meditation, and also through combining it with our knowledge of the Buddha's teachings. And I think the karmic force can be understood by the analogy of a clock. Before the electronic clocks are invented, we have ordinary clocks with springs. So when you want the clock to work, you, what do you call that? You wind the spring, right? So every time, say, you turn the key, you create a force in the spring, right? You create an energy, you create a force. And the force is there in the spring so long as it is not spent altogether. So you turn round and round and round and you make more and more force. So until you cannot turn it any longer. So it has full force. And so long as there is force, it will cause the wheels, say, to turn, and so it will cause the clock to go and go and go, tick, 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 tick all the time. So the more the force, the longer the activity will go. So in the same way, when we do something good or bad, we create this karma with this force. And this force will cause this the sequence of consciousness and moments of consciousness go on and on and on. So the stronger the force, the longer the duration of this going on and on. So, and we did many things in our lives, and so we have many, we have a store of many karmas, and so these karmas cause this life, or say this mind and matter, arising and disappearing, on and on and on. So it will not stop just at what we call death in one life. So it will go on to a longer period of time. So if we take the analogy of a clock, I think we can understand it better. The force of karma, or a karmic force. Now, say we accept the process of death and birth, or we accept the rebirth. But in accepting rebirth, we must be very careful not to fall into false views. If we do not understand the process of death and rebirth correctly, as I explained to you last time, then we may think that when a person dies, the physical body and his mental activity may cease, but there is something, a soul, which does not die, and it is that soul which goes to another life and then gets into the mind and body there, it is ready for it. So it is like changing clothes, or a man moving from one house to another. So the occupant, the man is the same, but there are the different houses, or the wearer is the same and there are different clothes. So we may fall into this belief that there is a permanent entity, a soul, everlasting, that dies, and we cannot call it die, that moves from one life to another, and so there is some kind of permanency there. So we may fall into this belief. We call it wrong belief if we do not understand the process of death and rebirth correctly. And also we can fall into another kind of false view. That is, we say there is death here and there is rebirth there. So death is just the disappearing of some, mental consciousness, mental states, and physical properties, and the rebirth is a new group of mind and matter. So when we see that, we may, if we do not understand correctly, we may take that this person dies here and then it is all there is to it. He's gone forever. So if we take that then life ends here and it is annihilated here, and so we fall into the false view of annihilation. So the first, we may fall into the false view of eternalism. And second, we may fall into the false view of annihilation. That means when a being dies, he dies out, and it's all there is to it. There is no more of it in the samsara or something like that. So that is the second false view. And there is a third false view, and that is when you say a new mind and matter arises as a rebirth, you may take it to arise spontaneously, and so without any cause. This mind and matter just arises, and there is no cause for its arising. They just arise spontaneously. So you may fall into this view also, that beings are reborn for no cause, just spontaneously. So they arise and they arise. So that is one. The third false view, and there is the fourth one, and that is this new being comes into being not without causes, but with a cause, and that cause is the creation of a great Brahma, or creation of God. So this new being arises because God created him, or a great Brahma created him, or something like that. So this is the fourth one. So the first is called what? Eternalist view, and the second, annihilationist view, and the third, let us call no cause false view, and the fourth, the wrong cause false view, because he understands the wrong cause for the arising of the being as a creation. So into one of these four wrong views, say, we may fall if we do not understand correctly the process of death and rebirth. Among those four, we Buddhists must be careful about the first one. As a Buddhist, we do not have the false view that beings are annihilated at death. That we never have. And then no cause also. We are taught we believe in the law of karma, and so we don't take those views. And also creation view, we don't take it. But the first one we may fall into. We must be very careful about that, because even though we have heard that there is no atta, or there is no individual or whatever, we still think there must be something which goes from this life to another, right? And you may say, Bodhisattva was born as someone in this life, and then in the next life he was born as another person, and so on. So there is something like one entity, one person going from life to life to life. So we may fall into that view if we do not understand correctly the process of death and rebirth. A little long one. In order to avoid falling into these wrong views, we need to apply the formula. You already know the formula, right? What's that? Neither he nor the other, right? Yeah. So we need to apply that formula to the process of death and rebirth. So the formula is neither he nor the other, or nor another. So that means the person who is reborn is neither the person who dies in the previous life, nor is he another person. So the first one means the method of difference or diversity, and the second one is the method of oneness or identity. So we should take these two together, and if we take only one of them, we may fall into one of these two views, the eternalist view and annihilationist view. So we need to apply these two methods together, neither one nor another. So when we put them together, we get the correct picture. So if we apply only one method, so we will fall into one of the wrong views. So it is important that we understand that the one supposed to be the one who is reborn is neither the person who dies here nor another person, nor a person totally disconnected with the person who dies. So there is relation as cause and effect between the person who dies here and who is reborn there. But the person who is reborn there is not the same identical person who dies here. So they are different in one sense and say the same in another sense. So we put these two together and we get the correct picture of the process of death and rebirth. So if we apply only one of them, then we will fall into one of these wrong views. So this link, this connection is, as you see, difficult to understand, and it is actually very interesting because it explains the law of karma and also the process of rebirth. Now, there are some details which I do not intend to go into, and that is which Sańkhâra causes which Viññānam. And these, in order to understand these details, you need to have a knowledge of Abhidhamma. You need to have a knowledge of at least the 121 types of consciousness. So if you are not familiar with these types of consciousness, you'll get bored. So I don't intend to go into this explanation of these details, but there are some others, say, who want to go into such details, and for them there will be a special class after we finish this class. So if you are impatient, just please wait. It will come later. So if you want to attend those special classes, I think there is still time for you to prepare. So you can study the types of consciousness and also the 24